Goldschmidt hits it out to left, and this will do it. And he does it in grand style. It's a grand slammer. A walk-off grand slam.
What is up, everybody? Welcome back to the Humm Baby Baseball channel. And today we're continuing with team previews, and it's time to talk about the National League Central champions, the St. Louis Cardinals. Obviously, we got Charlie back again. And how you been doing?
Great, Eric. Thanks for having me on again. Appreciate it. How you doing?
I'm good, man. Just good. Just getting ready for the season. And obviously, make sure go and subscribe right away. This is his channel right here. I'll have that link in the description. And as well as Kenny Wallace, another channel that he runs if you're a NASCAR fan. So make sure to go subscribe today. As you can see, the channel's doing pretty well, trying to hit 50,000. So good job on that.
Thank you. Appreciate that.
You run this channel, you put up these videos and everything, right?
Yeah, so I produce it. I'm on the channel sometimes in terms of as a reporter, but also I'll shoot some video. Kenny Wallace, for those that don't know, the Wallace brothers family, Rusty Wallace, Kenny Wallace, Mike Wallace, they're all from St. Louis. Kenny was a NASCAR Cup driver. Kenny was a Fox Sports broadcaster, big-time personality. So I helped him get into YouTube about a year ago, and the channel's growing really well. So thank you.
Awesome. Yeah, that's cool. Yeah, so make sure everyone goes subscribe to those channels immediately, and that would be great. And today we're talking, obviously, St. Louis Cardinals. And I usually start with the offseason, but you obviously signed Wilson Contreras to replace Molina. Other than that, unless I'm forgetting, you didn't do a whole lot this offseason, but obviously you had a great year last year. Maybe you didn't need to do a lot. But, I'm not sure what your thoughts or Cardinals' thoughts are on the offseason, if you're disappointed. But what are your thoughts on the offseason?
Yeah, I think Cardinal fans are disappointed because the front office, John Mozeliak, the Cardinals president of baseball operations, came out and basically said, hey, we're going to increase payroll. And part of the conversation actually with Nolan Arenado, who had the chance to opt out, is John Mozeliak went and had a meeting with Nolan Arenado, and it seemed like there was maybe, I don't want to say a promise, but an agreement that, hey, we're going to go for more than just the NL Central. We're going to try to be elite. We're going for a World Series. We're going to add pieces. And then they go out, they make a big move for the Cardinals, getting Wilson Contreras. But that's, Eric, as you said, all they did. And the Cardinals, in my opinion, they need starting pitching. They need elite starting pitching. Like, they have 5 starters, but when you get to a playoff series against the Mets or whoever it may be, the Phillies last year, you lose to an Aaron Nola and a Zach Wheeler. So the Cardinals have a good regular season pitching staff, but unless Jack Flaherty is an ace, I think they don't match up well in the postseason versus those elite teams. So Cardinals fans were disappointed that the Cardinals did not do more. Now, John Mozeliak said part of that was because the market got so crazy. You saw what happened with, all these guys, all the shortstops getting 13-year deals and all of that. Another thing I think is interesting, we don't know the exact story, but the Cardinals have this issue with their regional sports network, Bally Sports Midwest, which may go into bankruptcy. The Cardinals own a 30% stake in that. And if you're going to bankruptcy, obviously your equity position isn't worth very much. But also, look, if they don't get that rights fee coming up this season, the president of the team said that's a big hit to their profit and loss statement. So they haven't said this outright, but I wonder if what's going on with their TV deal also had them kind of hold back from spending this offseason, just wondering what's going to go on. Are they going to get that payment? And what's that future look like for the TV rights to the games?
Oh, I wasn't aware of that. That's interesting. That definitely could have something to do with it. But, yeah, our fans are probably not too worried about that. They just want to get players, get better. I think you all lost, both games in the wild card last year? Yeah, so definitely a great like you said, a great regular season team, but might need some extra help here when it comes. I'm sure you could still make some moves during the season, but yeah, the offseason is really the time where you want to improve. And if we look at, let's just start with the offense. I know you mentioned the pitching needs to get better, but the offense pretty much, like I said, it's the same. You got Wilson Contreras instead of Molina, but Edman is coming back. You got this Tyler O'Neill, Goldschmidt, Arenado. That's just an amazing duo right there. You got Dylan Carlson, Lars Nootbaar, and then Juan Yepes and Brendan Donovan. So this is just a sample lineup. Then you have your bench here. But what are your thoughts here on the offense coming into 2023?
So I personally do not worry about the Cardinals offense. I think, and if you're talking about from a fan perspective, what the fans worry about, I think the fans probably focus too much on what happened in the postseason the last couple years. Small sample size. You lost in the COVID year to the Padres. You lost the one-game wild card to the Dodgers 2 years ago. And then you basically got shoved by Zach Wheeler and Aaron Nola in the playoffs. So I understand, look, the offense needed to step up their game in the postseason, but for the regular season, the Cardinals' offense was actually very good last year. They were around third in the National League in a lot of the categories that really matter. If you're just talking about OPS or runs scored, they have a bunch of really good young position players. Now, they do have guys that are either health question marks or consistency question marks, or can you do this for more than a half season type questions. So like if you go down that list, so Tommy Edman's really good, really underrated. Don't worry about him. Tyler O'Neill, he was 8th in the MVP 2 years ago, but last year only played about 100 games. So Tyler O'Neill, super talented, Gold Glover, very fast, can hit you 30-plus homers. He needs to stay healthy. So that's his issue. Obviously, you don't worry about Goldie. Yeah. You don't worry about Arenado. You're talking about the MVP and third in the MVP.
Right.
Wilson Contreras, huge upgraded catcher. You're not worried about him offensively. He's a top 5 offensive catcher. Then you get to Carlson, switch hitter, big-time prospect, needs to do it consistently, needs to stay healthy. He was banged up last year, had like a wrist-hand issue, which was impacting his swing. Lars Nootbaar, everybody is high on Lars Nootbaar. He's a guy that he was really bad in the first half of last season, but then was awesome in the second half. And he's one of these players, if you're into the advanced metrics, everybody loves this guy because exit velocity, he goes up the drive line, he's got a good batter's eye, he's got power. So he was great for the second half of the season. But again, Lars Nootbaar is somebody who has to do it for a full season before we can say, hey, he's a star in the big leagues.
All right.
Juan Yepez is probably a DH, doesn't really have a position. He'll play a little corner outfield, he'll play a little first base, but a good hitter. I can't remember what he had last year, 11 home runs, something like that. Right-handed hitter, good platoon type player, maybe as a DH and to play a little defense here and there. I wonder if he'll be a trade chip long term. Brendan Donovan was awesome last year as a rookie. 394 on base percentage. I know in this lineup he's 9th, which we have seen. He's also been batting leadoff for the Cardinals in some of these spring training games. I think they'll play some matchups there. So versus a righty, you could see Brendan Donovan leading off. Lars Nootbaar actually led off in the postseason games against the Phillies. The Phillies threw 2 right-handers. So I think I touched on all those guys. Then your bench guys. So Kisner's your backup catcher. Paul DeJong was an all-star a couple years back. 30 homer power, but he's really fallen off offensively. He's on the team right now because he has a contract. This might be his last chance. You know, I think the Cardinals will give him every opportunity even to be the backup shortstop because he's making like $9 million a year. Nolan Gorman, big-time prospect, also had a good season last year, was sent down, but this dude has 30 homer power. He was a first-round pick out of high school. And I don't know exactly. I think he had maybe 14 homers in the big leagues last year, whatever it was. Pretty good season. I think he had 30 total homers between the minors and the big leagues. So he can still be a really good player. Also doesn't have a true position. Like, he's athletic enough to play second, but he came up as a third baseman. Obviously, we have Nolan Arenado, so he's blocked there. Right. Even if he were to play first, he's blocked by Paul Goldschmidt. So I also wonder with him long-term, could he be a trade chip just because positionally he's blocked by some superstars with the Cardinals. And then Alec Burleson, also big-time left-handed hitter, tore up the minor leagues last year, only got about, I think, 50 plate appearances with the Cardinals, so didn't do a lot, but still not enough at bats to really say what he's going to be at the big league level. He's right around a top 100 type prospect, so he could still be pretty good, Alec Burleson.
Yeah, sounds like a really good offensive team. Even if they don't stay healthy, you got a lot of young guys coming up that can contribute. So, yeah, I love the offense of this team. I didn't think they needed to do a whole lot. What I thought they would do in the offseason was kind of address the rotation because some of these guys have been a little injury prone. Some of them are a little old. Like Adam Wainwright, I guess I thought he was going to retire like 10 years ago. So he just keeps coming back. And every time I think he's done, he comes back and he stays good. But at some point, he's gonna have to either decline or retire. He's going to be 42 soon. So You got Wainwright, obviously the rest of the rotation. Jordan Montgomery you picked up, Jack Flaherty, and I don't know. I mean, like you said, it could be solid. I don't know if it'll work in the playoffs, but I mean, what do you think about the rotation?
Yeah, so getting back to kind of what I said earlier, I like those names. If Flaherty is healthy, he can be a 1. Now, he hasn't been an ace really since he was awesome second half of 2019. He was also pretty darn good for the first third of the season in 2021, but he's had a ton of injury issues in 2021, and last year as well. But he has ace-type stuff. I don't know how much you can count on him, and even if he's out there, are they going to let him throw 200 innings coming off an injury-plagued season? Probably not. But if he's a 1, everybody falls into place a little bit better. So Adam Wainwright was really good last year for the first 5 months, was really bad his final month. Says he found the issue was with his landing spot. He took a comebacker off the knee that messed up his plant foot. So we'll see if he can get back to that first 5 months where he was pretty dang good. Miles Michaelis had a really good season last year. He's a candidate, I think, for an extension from the Cardinals. Jordan Montgomery was a really nice pickup in that trade with the Yankees for Harrison Bader. And then Steven Matz, he was signed last offseason, coming off his good year with the Toronto Blue Jays. He was also banged up last year. So the Cardinals this year, again, I don't worry about them in the regular season because they have enough arms to probably win 90-plus games, most likely win the NL Central against a Brewers team that's pretty good. Cubs are kind of trying. But if you look at those 5 names, the only guy who's under contract beyond this year is Steven Matz. So the Cardinals have some big-time question marks for the future. I do think they'll try to sign Miles Michaelis to an extension. Wouldn't surprise me if Jordan Montgomery, they offer an extension. Adam Wainwright, I'm not so sure. If he has another good year and he's knocking on the door of the Hall of Fame, I'm not so sure Adam Wainwright wouldn't try to come back for one more season. Jack Flaherty is the guy that he's a West Coast guy, LA, and he's gone to arbitration. The Cardinals with young pitchers, they usually lock them up to these deals where they buy out some arbitration years and some free agent years. Because that hasn't happened with Jack Flaherty, I doubt Jack Flaherty will be with the Cardinals beyond this season. He just strikes me as the type of guy who hits the market. Once he hits the market, the Cardinals usually don't win those bidding wars.
Yeah. Yeah, and the Cardinals, unless I'm forgetting, they don't do a lot of super long-term contracts, 8, 9, 10-year deals. Maybe Matt Holliday, but it's been a while. So, yeah, that's a pretty – I mean, it's like you said, it's a solid-looking rotation. If they stay healthy, effective, it's fine. But I did think that they were going to sign someone like a Rodon or something just to put in there and just try to take it to the next level. But if they stay healthy, it's a good rotation. Then you have the bullpen. Obviously, some good names, Gallegos, Jordan Hicks you got up here in here right now, Cabrera, a lot of good names here. Obviously, Ryan Helsley, Dakota Hudson is in here. So he's still there. Drew Verhagen. What are your thoughts here on this bullpen here coming into 23?
So we'll go in order here. So Ryan Helsley at the top had an unbelievable season as the Cardinals closer. Just lost his arbitration case against the Cardinals, which is always fun to kind of tick off one of your best players right before the season starts. But he has big-time stuff, 100-plus mile-an-hour fastball. Now, the issue last year in the playoffs, Game 1, is so Ryan Helsley's last outing before the postseason, he walked off the mound injured against the Pittsburgh Pirates. He had a finger issue. His finger was jammed up. He was amazing during the season. But what happened in the playoffs was they bring him in to close out the 8th inning. I want to say it was a 4 or 5 out save. I believe a 5 out save. I can't remember exactly. But he gets through the first inning, the 8th. Then he sits down. He comes back out for that second inning, which, by the way, he did that a ton during the season and was very good at it. But I think that finger all of a sudden, after sitting down, jammed up, whatever it was, he had no control. Next thing you know, walks, and that inning got out of hand. The Cardinals should have won that game 2-0, and then maybe they win the playoff series in 3 games. Who knows? But that was kind of fluky with Ryan Helsley's finger, so I don't worry about him long term. He's a stud. Giovanni Gallegos has been a very reliable reliever the last 2-3 years. Andre Palante, rookie last year, really, really good. He started last year. He was out of the pen. He was very effective both ways. I think he's a guy who they'll probably keep him in the pen, but you never know. If there's an injury to the rotation, could they slot him back in the rotation? Jordan Hicks has an electric arm. You probably remember him from
Yeah.
several years ago, throwing 106 miles an hour. Then he had Tommy John. Doesn't throw as hard, but I think he's another multi-inning bullpen option. They kind of tinkered with him as an opener type, or even a short inning starter last year. That didn't work. So I think he'll be a high leverage reliever, maybe a multi-inning reliever. Genesis Cabrera, we'll see if he can bounce back. The left side of the bullpen is a big question mark for the Cardinals. Genesis Cabrera did not finish the year well last year, was sent down to the minors, didn't have good numbers. So Zach Thompson isn't on this graphic, but Zach Thompson could be their number one lefty out of the pen. We'll see there. Chris Stratton is kind of a depth guy. Dakota Hudson is interesting because he's been a successful starter in the past. I think for him, he's more valuable to the Cardinals as a multi-inning reliever to start the season than he is as a AAA starter. But again, if you're talking about the first injury to a Cardinals starter, which you hope doesn't happen in the World Baseball Classic because you have both Wainwright and Michael is throwing in the World Baseball Classic, I think Dakota Hudson probably gets the first shot. He's probably the sixth starter with a guy like Jake Woodford. They get the first shot if somebody gets hurt. Drew Verhagen. We have a guy on radio that calls him Drew Verhoagie Sandwich. He was not very good coming over from, I think it was either Japan or Korea where he pitched. Cardinals gave him a 2-year deal, and he was not very good at all. So he needs to put up or shut up here in his second season.
Yeah, for sure. Oh, yeah, dang. I mean, I think it was Japan here, says Japan. But, yeah, it's a pretty again, decent. Everything's decent here as long as everyone shows up like they should. But I definitely remember Hicks. And Chris Stratton used to be, I didn't even know he was still playing. He used to be with the Giants. So, but, yeah, I mean, it's solid looking, like an overall solid looking team. I think you guys are obviously favorites again. It's just all about getting deep into the playoffs, I would assume. And the last thing I wanted to run through is your possible impact here from some of these prospects who are look a lot of them are getting close to MLB ready or your top 5 or AA or higher. So any of these guys, obviously Jordan Walker, your number one guy, any of these guys you expect to make a big impact here this year?
So a lot of interesting names here. Again, I'll start at the top. Jordan Walker is the next big thing. We just had him on our radio show yesterday. That's on my YouTube channel. Jordan Walker is a stud. We're talking top 5 in all of baseball. Could be the top prospect. Obviously different publications have different guys, but he has everything to be potentially the top prospect in all of baseball. He's 6'6", he's 250, has ridiculous power, hit a 430-foot homer on Sunday in a spring training game. He's only 20 years old, never played past AA, but he was a first-round pick in the COVID year for the Cardinals. Another guy who's blocked positionally, came up as a third baseman. Obviously, Nolan Arenado is there, so they've moved him to the outfield. Really good athlete. He beat out an infield single the other day and had a sprint speed of close to, I think, 29 feet per second, whatever it was. So he's fast. He threw a ball 100 miles an hour from the outfield. So he can hit. The question is, can he hit right now? He's only 20. And also, defensively, he doesn't have a lot of time in the outfield. But this is a guy that he should be the future of the Cardinals. I don't know if he breaks camp with the team. There's a shot of that. But I would be shocked if Jordan Walker does not play for the Cardinals this year. He's going to be a stud. Mason Wynn is a shortstop, also 20. He's probably a year away. Now, maybe he makes a cup of coffee appearance with the Cardinals later on down the line, but I think the Cardinals would love if Mason Wynn is their starting shortstop in 2024. Then they can move Tommy Edman back to second base, where he's already a Gold Glover, and then Brendan Donovan becomes that super utility Ben Zobrist who can play elite-level defense at 6 different positions. Gordon Graceffo is also a highly touted right-hander. Very good chance he starts the season in the big league bullpen. I'm sure they want him to be a starter down the line. They're very high on him. Matthew Liberatore is a guy who's losing steam. He was in that Randy Arozarena trade, and just so far it's early, but hasn't lived up to the hype, and his prospect status is dwindling. So, he's had a cup of coffee with the Cardinals, wasn't very good. You wonder, is he going to be a starter? Does he end up being a lefty reliever out of the bullpen? But if you look at these prospects, for example, like I guarantee you the Cardinals don't value Matthew Liberatore higher than Tink Hence, for example. Tink Hence is 20. He throws 100 miles an hour. And he's a couple years away. They're really monitoring his innings. But if you talk about a pitcher, he probably has the highest ceiling of everybody on this list. Alec Burleson, we mentioned. Ivan Herrera is probably, well, I was going to say he's the catcher of the future. That was before they went out and got Wilson Contreras. But maybe Ivan Herrera is the backup catcher next year. Cooper Jerpy, first-round pick out of college. He could be a fast riser. Michael McGreevy, first-round pick a couple years ago out of college. You could see him in the big leagues pretty soon. So the Cardinals have some good depth, and also they have some high-end guys. Tink Hence is absolutely high-end, could be an ace, and Jordan Walker, again, could be the number one prospect in baseball. He's that good. Mason Wynn throws the ball 100 miles an hour. He started out as a two-way player, has power, stole 40 bases plus last year in Double-A. So Cardinals got some good prospects here.
I definitely like your prospects here, right at the top. So that's always going to be helpful. And these guys are Gordon. These guys are starters here. So they could they put their potential? I don't know, Liberatore, but could they potentially jump in there? If you need them, if there's some injuries, and because your rotation, like we said, can be a little injury prone.
Yeah, and it's also about the philosophy of the team. For example, Matthew Liberatore right now, I would think that he starts the year in the AAA starting rotation. Gordon Graceffo is probably good enough, and at this point, if the Cardinals have a guy who's a starting pitcher down the road, they have no problem taking that guy and starting him out in the big league bullpen. They kind of did that with Palante last year, and maybe Palante becomes a starter next year. I don't know. We'll see, but I could foresee if Gordon Graceffo has a chance to contribute as a reliever, I could see the Cardinals using him in the pen this year and then still developing him as a starter down the road.
Okay, that makes sense. But yeah, overall, y'all are looking good. And last year, 93-69, you won the division by 7 games pretty easily. Do you think that there's going to be any challenges to the Cardinals this year with the Brewers, Cubs getting any better? The offseason, I don't know, but it doesn't seem like it. But let me know, what do you think?
So let's start at the bottom here. Reds aren't trying. Pirates, I don't want to say the Pirates are being the Pirates. They're always, they're going to try to find that window once every 10 years where they can compete. They had it back in 12, 13, 14, whenever, with McCutchen and Cole, and they're probably retooling to maybe do that again in a couple years, but they're not ready to really compete. I like the fact that the Cubs are trying again and spending again. They went out there and got Jameson Taillon. They got Dansby Swanson. I love the pickup of Cody Bellinger. I still think Cody Bellinger, a couple years removed from his shoulder issue, if he can get better, get stronger. I mean, he's making a lot of money for 1 year. I think it's about $17 million, but still, I like that from a high reward. You can say low risk, $17 million, whatever. It's a 1 year deal. So I could see Cody Bellinger being very good for the Cubs. I think the Cubs will compete. I don't think they're going to win the division. So I think the Cardinals got to be the favorite. The Brewers always make some sneaky good moves here and there to compete. I would think that the Cardinals are going to win the division. I could see the Brewers being right there with them. And again, it gets to the trade deadline. Last couple years, the Cardinals have figured out their pitching problem at the trade deadline. 2 years ago, it was John Lester and Jay Happ. Last year, they went even higher and got some pretty good pitchers in Jose Quintana and Jordan Montgomery. So I think it always comes down. Also, the Brewers are always playing that game of, look, we want to win, but also we got to look towards the future, which is why you trade Josh Hader when you're still having a chance to make the playoffs. That move could not have played well in the clubhouse. So I do think they're in different spots where the Cardinals, if they have a shot at the deadline and they have a big need, I think the Cardinals can go ahead and make a deal and will.
Yeah, the Cubs did. I did do a Cubs preview, and they did get a lot better. I signed a couple other guys, too. It just seemed like they had a pretty active offseason. So they just signed Edwin Rios, also another former Dodger, and Trey Mancini, I think. So, I like the Cubs offseason, but, I did the video. All my comments were like, no, they suck. They're not gonna do anything. I'm like, okay, well, I'm a dumbass. So I thought they looked pretty good, and they might at least compete for second place or maybe even give the Cardinals some trouble, but I was told that that's not happening. So
Well, hey, I don't think you're necessarily wrong there. Like, would it shock me if they're 500? No, and look at their rotation. So you got Hendricks, you got Stroman, you got Tyon. Am I wrong? Did they get Wade Miley? I can't remember, but that's a
I'm not
pretty
sure.
good. That's a pretty good top three. Like that's a. Are those?
I think he went to the
pitchers?
Brewers. I think Miley went to the
Miley.
Brewers.
Okay, I can't remember. They have another guy like that, but I think the Cubs will compete for being a 500 team.
Yeah, I mean, but yes, I mean, I don't know. It's always a surprise every year. You never know. So some team's going to do well. I tell people if I would have predicted the Nationals to win the World Series back in 2019, people would have called me an idiot. So you just never know, right? Especially after I think they were, even last year, the Phillies, after they fired their manager. If I said Phillies are going to be the National League champions, people would have called me a complete moron and get off. YouTube would have taken my channel off for misinformation. So you never know what's going to happen in baseball. So that's why I love this game, But
Oh, absolutely. Hey, look, we know as a Cardinals media member or here in St. Louis, we know better than anybody that Phillies team, look, they got hot. And I think that Phillies team is more built for the postseason than the Cardinals. The Cardinals are a team that's built for the regular season. But look, like when we started that playoff series, I remember on the radio saying, look, the Cardinals should not be favored in this series. I don't care how many wins you have because it comes down to a best of three. And if you're a bettor, it usually comes down to your starting pitching matchups. And game one was Zach Wheeler versus Jose Quintana. If you're just betting based on the starting pitcher, you're going to bet on the Phillies. Game two was what? Aaron Nola versus Miles Michaelis. All due respect to Miles Michaelis, very solid. But again, if you're betting on the starting pitcher in a one-game scenario, you're going to take the Phillies in both those games. It did not surprise me one bit that the Cardinals were swept in that quick best of three. Because again, the Cardinals are built for the long haul. They're not built to line up against a Mets team that's going to throw Scherzer and Verlander at you because the Cardinals are going to be the underdogs just based on starting pitching matchups.
Yeah, that makes sense. And you might get through a wild card, a best of three, because it is baseball. But once you start getting to those best of seven, best of fives, and best of sevens, it gets even harder. So, but there's always a trade deadline. You think maybe Cardinals could be active? If they're winning the division and maybe make a move around the trade deadline this year. Or?
Oh yes, I think so. I wonder what their needs will be. It's going to depend on pitching. If they have a hole in the rotation, if somebody has an arm injury, maybe then they go out and they get a stud starting pitcher who's able to be dealt as a rental or somebody with the Cardinals would prefer a guy with years of control, which is what they did last year. Jose Quintana, I think they were interested in potentially bringing him back, but part of the reason they traded, look, there's a lot of value to trading an all-star, not an all-star, but a gold glove center fielder in Harrison Bader. And they did that. They traded away a year and a half of control of Harrison Bader, but they got a year and a half of Jordan Montgomery. Jordan Montgomery is a pretty dang good starting pitcher. And again, I think they'll potentially try to sign him long-term. But like right now, I can see the Cardinals having enough offense. I think enough of those position players, they all don't need to hit. Like I mentioned about 6 names. If 4 of them hit, the Cardinals will be fine. They'll probably need, I could see them going after a big-time left-handed reliever at the trade deadline if they need that guy. And again, if they have an injury to the rotation, an upgrade, an actual ace for the playoff stretch would be something this team really needs, I think.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. And it very well happen, but we'll see how the season goes. And the Cardinals, a great-looking team, obviously. And you're good that you're in the Central, too, obviously, because you are going to be the favorite. But appreciate you jumping in. And everyone make sure, again, go subscribe. If you're a NASCAR fan, go subscribe over there to Kenny Wallace as well. And thanks for coming on.
Awesome, Eric. Appreciate it, man. Thank you.
No problem. See you guys later.